So it's recording now. Okay, so I'm so delighted to be with you today, Katrina, and I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, but I'll just first say my name's Cathy Bettman, Dr. Cathy Bettman, because we're going to be talking about research, and we're doing this for our project for the research committee of the National Heads of Counselling and Psychotherapy. So thank you so much for giving your time. And I'm going to ask you to tell about yourself, which could take the whole time because there's a lot to say.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Cathy. I'm delighted to catch up with you again. We do have a history, and I'm just so grateful that I've got some one-on-one time with you now, as well as this conversation, which I think is an important conversation. So thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, so just to start, you said just to give a bit of an introduction to me. So currently, I'm a senior lecturer in the discipline of counselling at the University of the Sunshine Coast. So that's my day job. But I have other hats as well as the senior lecturer role at UniSC. So I'll talk about some of those other hats. So besides a senior lecturer at UniSC, I'm also the program coordinator of the Bachelor of Counselling at UniSC, as well as a couple of double degrees at UniSC. So that keeps me busy. Besides program coordinating and tutoring in those programs, I'm also a HDR supervisor, so we will talk about research. And I currently have 2 HDR students at this point in time. And my name is up in the NHCPE supervisor list in case there's prospective students out there looking for supervisors that are in line with their research ideas. And that's a nice segue to some other roles that I have. So you talked about these interviews as being a project as part of the research subcommittee of the NHCPE. And it's that subcommittee that I'm actually the chair of as well. So I'm really excited, and I've had a great year chairing the research subcommittee of the NHCPE. Which has the whole mission of promoting research competencies, research resiliency within counselling practitioners, counselling academics within the Australian context. We, as a committee, believe that that's really important, so that important not only to I suppose, define who we are as counsellors in Australia, promote the professional identity of counsellors in Australia, but also to increase the professionalisation of the profession of counselling in Australia. So it is a worthy, long and worthy mission of the research subcommittee. So besides these YouTube clips, I also run what's called a community of practice for any counselling practitioner, research counselling student, counselling academic who has an interest in research in any shape or form. They are more than welcome to join our community of practice. We meet bi-monthly on an evening and discover and discuss various concepts or questions that are appearing in people's minds or members' minds at that time. For instance, the last meeting we had was all about the different types of HDR programs that counsellors can enter here in Australia, as well as what it means to do a HDR program at each age cohort. What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? Yeah, and so our next one will be all about how do you apply? What is the entry criteria to do a PhD in counselling in Australia, and how do I go about it? So we're going to be talking about that. So that's that hat.
Before we
And
move from
yeah,
that, although
yeah.
it's sort of putting the end into the beginning, but if people watching this here and are very interested in becoming part of that community of practice,
Yeah.
how do they get hold of you? How do they, sign up?
Yeah, good call. There is a page in the NHCPE.net website. There's a whole tab in there called research, and in there there's a page dedicated to the community of practice. If you if you go into LinkedIn actually and go into the search bar in LinkedIn and put in there counselling research community of practice, the page should come up. And in there, my contact details are there, and all you need to do is email me and I'll put you on the mailing list. Yeah. And I'll also email you the Zoom link to our upcoming meeting. Yeah. So that's essentially how you can find my contact details should you be interested in joining the community of practice. Yeah, it's a good question.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry I interrupted you. So I don't know if you were going to continue with something, but
Mm.
immediately, sort of in my mind, you kind of separated a little bit, like your counseling lecturer role, and then you put the research. But in a sense, where we are, what we're talking about, and the committee is very much putting the two together,
Yeah.
counseling and research. So can you talk about your thoughts on why we need to put them together?
Why we need to put
Counseling and research.
yeah,
What's the connection and what is its importance?
yeah. Oh, good call. Let me see if I can answer this in an articulate way. Professions in Australia that have kudos, I suppose, recognition by government, by industry, by community, are those professions that have a history of being able to build their knowledge base, can have a definition of who they are. If the government says we have a mental health problem, we need to find practitioners or people expert in mental health to fill this gap, they immediately go to those professions that have a strong identity, have a strong research base, have strong professional associations and registration bodies that recognise, support that profession. So consequently, jobs that a counsellor is more than able and probably better than other professions to do get overlooked because we lack that strong base. So the governments will go, oh, here's a mental health job. And the industry will say, we need to get a psychologist / social worker / occupational therapist / psychiatric nurse to do that job. Where we know, I've been teaching counsellors for close to 15 years now, and I know counsellors have more than the skill set to be able to do those jobs. So what's harming the profession is not our skills and our competencies, but our recognition. So the way to build that recognition is first to be able to build our knowledge base, build the knowledge base and build the knowledge, the skills, the competencies that we know that counsellors can do. And if we can, and we do that by research. So if counsellors themselves are building that knowledge base using credible research, published credible research, the body of counsellors, the profession of counselling can then advocate for themselves at governmental levels, at industry, and say, look, here's the evidence. This is who we are. This is what we do. This outlines the competencies that we have that can very much do those jobs that are very much needed out there in Australia to address the mental health crisis here in Australia. So that's a big mission, but you've got to start somewhere. So that's why I'm very much advocating that the practitioners out there embrace research, learn research, try and downplay anxiety related to the term research. Make it known that it's not such a scary thing to do. Once you have the know-how and the understanding of how to do research and how to write it up, where to go to publish it, it's actually a very worthwhile exercise. And Yeah, and so that's where I'm at. I suppose to try and build recognition. Yeah, I want. There's many ways to do it. The way me and a team of people are trying to do it is to build the research literacy so that counsellors can demonstrate that what they're doing, I suppose, can evidence that what they're doing is working, evidence it using robust research skills and knowledge, evidence it, and then writing up that evidenced and robust research journey up in a manuscript that's worthy of publication. And with those publications, that's when we can say, hang, look at us. This is what we're doing. This is actually responding to the gap that you're recognizing. You know, we can do it. Please employ us. So that's why I hope that's answering your question. That's why I think research is so important, particularly now with the national standards that have gone out. We need to promote those university trained counsellors in research skills and knowledge building skills to build the profession in the right direction. Yeah.
And whenever you talk about it, you talk with a great deal of passion and energy. How do
Yeah.
you maintain that? Because you're doing such a lot. So what about it gives you that passion, that energy, that excitement? What excites you about research?
That is a great question, Cathy, and I'm so glad you asked it. And I'm coming actually from a position of I don't want new graduates to go through what I did when I first graduated from my undergraduate degree. So I'm going to go back there. My qualifications are in psychology, and it equipped me beautifully. Psychology is a great degree. In regard to understanding the medical model of mental illness, you know the DSM, you know how to do an assessment, and assess whether a person actually meets a criteria for a certain mental disorder as listed in the DSM series. And in so doing, by having that recognition, that diagnosis, consumer can rightfully receive the help, the much needed help that they need, to receive treatments and recover and manage and keep going in society as a contributing member of our society. That's great. Psychology is also beautiful at teaching its students research skills. And in so doing, they call themselves scientist practitioners. So they can go out there in the workforce, working with the workforce, but applying scientific rigor to what they're doing with the whole aim of evidencing that what they're doing is effective to build that knowledge base. But the side effect, if I've at all, probably a second benefit of teaching these research skills to the students is that it provides a pathway to HDR programs, which are the tomorrow's faculty that are employed in universities to teach the next generation of practitioners. So that pathway is needed too. So it's so important. And that is the success of psychology. Psychology has been around much longer than counselling in Australia. Its professional association, APS, was actually once a chapter of the American, I think, or the British Psychological Association. So it actually started with a strong background already, whereas counselling is new to the field. The professional associations that support counsellors only came into effect in the 1990s. So it's still a baby in the field. And we're only going through probably the second iteration of training standards now, which up to now have really concentrating on creating a graduate who is an ethical and evidence-based practitioner in the field, not necessarily a researcher. And we're starting to realize now if counselling needs to progress in their profession, those research skills are needed. They need to be included in the training standards. We need to train the counsellors in those skills so they can evidence that what they're doing is effective and evidence-based, and ethical. Yeah. So so going back to my background, so I graduated with honours from my undergraduate degree in psychology, and got a job as the title was a psychologist, but I was definitely in a role where I'll be using counselling skills. And as I said, psychologists are or the degree of psychology is very good at teaching what a mental illness is, how to assess it, and how to research it, but not so much on the talk therapies and how to help people that are coming to seek mental health professionals such as a psychologist. So I did feel unsupported. I didn't feel I had the skills. It was an awful position to be in. I had a sense of, I've done so well at university and such pride in my role as a student in psychology, and so confident that I'd be a good psychologist, only to go out there in a job that actually demanded a skill set that I didn't have. My degree didn't teach me. A lot of what's the term? Imposter syndrome. So I thought I had an inbuilt supervisor in my workplace who had gone through the same system. And at that time, psychology didn't have formal supervision training. So I was supervised by the senior psychologist who'd just gone through the same. So I got the same program and the same experiences as I. So went and sought an external supervisor who was somewhat better. And by seeing having appointments with an external supervisor to help me with the job, quickly realized there's a whole skill set out there. One supervisor a fortnight is not going to skill me up in a manner that I need to do my job in an effective manner and to have a sense of self-worth. So I decided to go back to postgraduate and enrolled in a clinical master's, clinical psychology masters. So again, found myself in the education sector and doing well. I had the academic skills, was doing well, but was very aware. I was just learning more about assessment and diagnosis. Certainly, there was placement there. But yeah, I just wasn't getting, I suppose, the support. Having been in the industry, working in the industry, I just knew even the placement experience I was getting in my master's of clinical psychology wasn't going to cut it.
So are you saying like you
Yeah.
had all this incredible theoretical knowledge,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
felt like you weren't able to translate it as much into practice, into being there with your clients?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I was searching for. How the universe works is, I suppose, I felt supported in the university setting, so decided to transfer from the clinical masters of the masters of clinical psychology into a PhD of clinical psychology and finish my degree as a PhD. And then just by happenstance, got academic jobs both in psychology and counselling. And as soon as I got a job as counselling faculty at the university and being aware of what counsellors learn in their degree, I thought to myself, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So I put it down to I needed to go through that for the universe to put me in the position I intrinsically wanted to be in. And I've thrived ever since. I've admired the training that counsellors get to be mental health practitioners out there. They get the competencies needed to effectively, ethically help a person in the community that asks for help. They absolutely have those skill set. And I know that because I can see the training that counsellors get that I didn't get, and the support that the counselling students get that I didn't get. And I suppose I'm an advocate for that model, the way counsellors are taught and the skills they get, because I didn't get it. And I wholly believe in the profession of counselling and the training they get, because I can see what I can compare it to what I didn't get. Yeah, so that's where the passion comes from, Cathy. I hope that answers your
Yeah,
question.
but it also brings up so many other important points because, and I know from working with you, you have an incredible foundation in quantitative research, which on the other hand is growing up more in the counselling and social work arenas. It was a far more qualitative focus on research, and I'm happy for that. I feel very comfortable in a qualitative arena, but I know that you have a very solid foot in both fields. So that must be an incredible advantage. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I suppose you've touched on the fact that, going as a faculty member into both psychology counselling, learning research in my undergraduate and then postgraduate psychology qualifications, which was predominantly quantitative, as you say, had an identity as a quantitative researcher. Then when working as faculty in counselling and giving roles where I tutored and coordinated research programs or research courses in counselling, postgraduate counselling degrees, quickly realised quickly, I suppose, did some self-learning and professional development on the qualitative side, and yes, become very quickly, I suppose, with my knowledge, I suppose, of research competency broadly, quickly learnt the qualitative methodologies and saw the beauty that qualitative methodology and the interpretivism and subjectivity, or that the research questions that we can answer by that that domain, that philosophy, that can't be answered with quantitative. So really appreciate too that there is qualitative research and quantitative research. The two are the distinct styles of research that answer distinct research questions that can't be answered by both. So there are, and the questions asked by counsellors to evidence that what they're doing is working can't be answered with research questions that are designed to be answered using quantitative methods. They can only be answered with the research questions that lend themselves to the qualitative methodology. So I see, yes, similar to the practice, psychology practice, counselling practice, advantages of both. That's the same in, practitioner work. That's the same in research work. Yeah, the research is distinct, advantages of both, but the qualitative side of research is best, is the philosophy of qualitative research, interpretivism, subjectivity, ism is best, and those methods associated with that philosophy is suited to the types of questions counsellors ask to evidence that what they do is effective, is ethical, is evidence-based. Absolutely. I'm hoping I'm answering your question, Cathy.
Yeah, but always something else, because even in the very few interviews that I've done for this project, you get some people who are very strictly qualitative and believe in it for counselling particularly, and then others that will argue and say, no, if you're going to speak the language of, the funding bodies, government bodies, then you also need to start supporting and encouraging quantitative research?
Yes, absolutely.
And then where does mixed methods fit in? And then for me, because I've become in very recent times an avid believer in autoethnography, and
Mm,
there is so much of a what's the word, an emphasis today in the social sciences on living, evidence
mm,
based stuff. So where do
mm.
you think we're heading with all that, and where does mixed
Yeah,
methods maybe come into all this?
that's a very good
Very
question.
big question, I guess.
I think I'm going to answer this two-way, deductively and inductively. I'm going to say that use those words in regards to how do we have credibility at the governmental level? So I suppose we're addressing that in inductively by indeed, yes, qualitative research questions, or research questions are best answered in the qualitative methodology. Autoethnography, as you state, is one of them. However, you can there are questions you can ask in counselling, or you can ask a number of questions in the one piece of research where a question can be answered using quantitative methods. And then those quantitative answers or the results found from that quantitative methodology can be explored, can be unpacked using the qualitative methods. So they have the beauty of mixed methods. So yes, so in order to increase the robustness of the research that's exploring a counselling research question, yes, so there are ways to do that, and yes, mixed method is beautiful for that, and yes, I do support that in when I'm supervising students at the HDR level, but as well as when I'm just doing some teaching and learning scholarship at work. I will generally employ a mixed method so that you do get, um, you can speak to the quantitative findings that higher bodies tend to pay attention to and the significance of results, but then you can unpack those results, go deeper, that normal quantitative research can't do. So yeah, that with the qualitative arm of that research, you can unpack and go deeper. So that's the beauty of, I suppose, being able to overlap both philosophies, and you can do that. It's not a mismatch, or some people argue that they're philosophically distinct and you can't overlap them. You absolutely can. It's called pragmatism. As long as there's a reason why you're designing research to include both philosophies, there's absolutely every reason you can do that. So that's the inductive. So I'm talking about supervising students in both qualitative and quantitative when it's warranted. But I think from top down or deductively, things are happening or things are moving too. Qualitative research historically has been considered not robust or based on insignificant results. There's no P factor, so to speak. There's been a misunderstanding of the robustness of qualitative research, such that findings that come, and I'm talking historically, findings that come from historical research isn't considered as highly, isn't regarded as highly from the decision bodies, the policymakers, than quantitative. However, I think that is shifting. I think we're starting to recognize with the maturation, I suppose, of research in Australia, we're starting to realise, and I'd like to say internationally, we're starting to realise that findings There are findings that are very significant, are very needed to understand how to address the mental health concerns we have in Australia and over the world. And these findings that we're finding were found using qualitative research, and therefore qualitative research is robust, is credible, is needed, and we need to recognise it. So RCTs, randomised controlled trials, are only half the picture. We need to consider the qualitative methodologies, the thematic analysis, the grounding analyses, and as you say, the autoethnographies, and other styles of research, so that we can have a better understanding of why something works as well as it does, and what needs to be tweaked to make it even better. Those sorts of questions can't be answered quantitatively. We need that qualitative arm. So I do think we're going to eventually meet in the middle. Students are going to be skilled up, but also our understanding of the value of qualitative research is increasing. Our expectations, of the findings we can glean from qualitative research is definitely being better understood at the decision maker level. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
It made me think when you were talking a lot about time, and that made me go to probably a pretty controversial place, and that is, I'm very curious about your thoughts on AI, particularly in regard to its place in research, and then also what we need to do with our students in regard to AI.
Thank you. I do have a thing to say about this. You're also asking this in a time when AI has been around now for about 3 years, and in that 3-year period, its development is exponential, and us as consumers of AI can't catch up. And so the answer to this question is constantly evolving. So where I'm at is I believe AI is here. AI is not going away. And for us, and when I say us, I'm not talking about counsellors now, I'm talking about humans, whatever profession you're in. If we don't learn to work with AI, we're going to be left behind, and the same. And so we need to understand AI. We need to learn how to use AI so we can work with AI, so that the results of that symbiotic working relationship between the human and the AI, the result is a result that could not have been achieved if one of those arms was taken off. So it's not a fully AI result. It's not a fully human result. It's the beautiful result of a symbiotic working relationship between the two. So that's where I see that's my mindset of AI. And that's the same as being a practitioner. So there are a lot of AI tools out there that will assist the practitioner and not replace the practitioner. We know there are chatbots out there that will provide a basic style of conversation that young people can and do go to when they're wanting to reflect on an instance in their life. But we also know that AI has a shortfall, and when someone's in crisis, it's the human connection that we know is needed, wanted, warranted, and needs to be there. Same in the research. Yes, AI is out there, and there are research tools now which will assist you in your role as a researcher. There are AI tools that will fashion a literature review for you once you've found the papers in the various databases that you can go to and found credible papers that provide evidence for the research question, the argument that you're trying to put together. You can, once you've found those papers and obviously vetted them for credibility, etc., you can put them in an AI tool, and the AI tool then acts like your research assistant and will put together a manuscript, an introduction. Certainly that's not the end goal. The human, once you've got that result, the human then needs to go in there, read it, and check all the sources, make sure there's no hallucinations going on there, and just basically check what's been said is correct. And then with that AI writing the first draft, human actually doing the editing and all that, you've got this beautiful evidence, a literature review. Yeah, that is worthwhile and done in a fraction of the time, yeah, then you
That
would
for
have
me
done.
is like so
Yeah.
crucial. I mean, if I think back, and might be before your time, but when I was doing my initial research, you would sort of go to a database, you would kind of find an article, then you would have to write off or get your library to get the article. It would take weeks for it finally to come to you.
Yeah.
Whereas now, that sounds
An
incredible.
hour.
And
Yeah.
even libraries, when you used to go to a university, it used to have this huge, big library with all these books and facilities. And I've just noticed that the need for the size is dwindling, not because there's not more stuff, but because it can be obtained
Yeah.
online so quickly.
Quickly. Absolutely. So it's interesting. I think we as researchers are becoming literature curators rather than creators. And that's not a bad thing. The knowledge is out there. There's AI to put it together. Our job is to be the curator, the checker, the editor, the final ticker. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. And then we have this AI research assistant, as you say, that can do the job that normally takes weeks, if not months, maybe sometimes years, in a matter of hours or a day at the most. Absolutely. So it's making us more efficient. And
Well,
that's what AI is supposed
well,
to
I
do.
think it can also be creative. I mean, I'm very conscious of the fact and the
Mm.
importance of um, highlighting plagiarism and making sure that that is all accounted for. But putting that aside, I don't
Mm.
only think that it's just efficient, I think it can also be creative. Because what I saw teaching some students was that if they just got a project, they would have to just do it. But when they had AI, and especially if you use creative means like diagrams and photographs and all that other sort of stuff, it just kept taking them to new places that they would never
Nice.
have thought of themselves. And it also held their interest. So they stayed with it rather than just do the job. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Which it can do too, provided you check it. It's not always
Yeah.
100% accurate. But there is an ability to use it creatively that I don't think we've even
100%.
started with yet.
Yes, I agree with you. There are tools coming out now, I think, that will act like a tutor and support the student, but then challenge it, stretch the student for their learning. And how I don't in there is no universe where that's not a good thing. I agree. So that's excellent. Yeah, yeah.
Because when I think about it before, as lecturers, we kind
Mm.
of had to know everything or
Yeah,
think we know everything.
yeah.
Google can do that in a quarter
Yes,
of the time. And now AI.
I
So the
know.
idea of making people passionate, encouraging them to go that step further, I think is so.
It's beautiful. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
talking about exciting, I know, look, I lose track of time, so it might be a few months ago now, but I know you did some amazing representation of our committee at the conference
I
and you
did.
won an award.
Oh,
So congratulations. Can we finish this off by you just talking about that conference a little bit and your award?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you for that. So, yes, this year, 2025, back in, let me remember, I think it was June. I was in Adelaide attending and presenting at the ACA conference at the beautiful convention centre they have over the river. And yes, during the dinner, I was presented the 2025 ACA Excellence in Research Award, which is the very first time ACA has been was recognising practitioners and academics in the field with awards. So I've got this beautiful glass engraved award that I have sit proudly in my office now. And that award was on the back of not only my independent research and published publications, but also what we've been talking about today, my efforts in increasing research milieu in the profession of counselling. So it was very much recognised in that space. So yeah, thank you for ending off with. Thank you so much.
I don't think anybody really knows how wonderful that feeling of being published is when you've done it.
Yeah, a bit of I'll never be forgotten. The legacy's there, exactly.
That is so fantastic. I'm mindful of the time, and we've always got this order: keep them short. People don't want to watch for a long time. I could go on talking to you forever, but is there anything that you would have liked me to ask that I haven't asked?
Wow. I think you covered it. I think you did really well. For anybody out there listening to me, because they were interested in the topic, which is research in counselling, I suppose my message to the listener is it's not as scary as it seems. Even if you don't want to do research as a practitioner, you're not interested in going on to a HDR program, there are support networks out there for you to evidence that what you're doing in the therapy room works, and turn all the data that the rich data you're collecting in the therapy room, turn that into a robust piece of research, that's written up in a manuscript that can be published in Australia. The more practitioners do that and publish in Australian journals, like the one ACR as published owned by ACA and by PACTA, the more our practitioners write up what they're doing and publish in those journals, the more those journals will increase in their ranking, which is, again, another way we can increase the credibility of the profession in Australia, because our journals themselves are increased in rank and getting cited more. We need to do that. So please, if you want, you don't have to get a supervisor, but you can get what I call an academic partner. Go to your local university. Approach an academic in there, asking them to partner with you, so you can use their ethics board, and you can pick their brains in terms of their research know-how, to turn your data into a publishable manuscript. That's, I think,
and join the community of practice.
And join the community of practice. Beautiful. That's a great end note. Thank you, Cathy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Really, really appreciate it. And
my pleasure.
Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you.